wonder if I don't need to wear headphones. Can I?
Yeah, just try it.
Oh, that works. Does that get feedback for you though?
I'm good. How's your day?
It was all right. I was trying to change washers and was very unsuccessful and went to Bunnings like 3 times.
You tried to change washers?
Yeah, we've had a leaky tap for maybe a month, maybe possibly almost 6 months. And today was the cracking point, but I couldn't do it. So
You sound very domesticated.
I'm not. That's the thing. Like I went to Bunnings and got half the stuff and then, no, can't do it. Let's go get some more stuff.
Yeah,
And then
nice.
still couldn't and called a plumber for tomorrow morning. So yeah.
Got it.
How about you?
Yeah, so I did an interview this morning at the radio station. That was early, and I'm doing my Masters of Business as well, and I'm constantly behind in that. So I was up till about 2 a.m.
Wow.
Finally submitting that, and then back at the station at 6 a.m. So yeah,
Come on.
and I'm glad, mate. You're the only thing keeping me awake.
I feel bad now.
No, not at all.
Okay, well, we'll drag this out for a good 3 hours then.
That's right. We'll make a night of it. All right, mate. Hey, thanks for doing this. It's really awesome. Thanks for your time tonight.
No problem.
So my podcast / radio show / YouTube stuff is called Coffee Chats. And I sometimes disguise my coffee as a scotch. I hope.
I didn't know we could do that. I don't drink coffee. Oh.
Do you have anything?
Bourbon ready.
You're a bourbon man.
Yeah. Well, I'm not picky, but it's just not coffee.
Yeah. Do you want to get something? Have you got at least
No,
water?
I've got a water here.
You're set. Nice. It's always interesting when you get an idea, and obviously I've seen some photos of you, so it's not a complete sort of surprise when you see, a voice that you're used to and then seeing their face, but it's always surprising to go, oh wow, that's what he looks like.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you get that a lot from people?
Well, actually the other day we had a new girl start at work and she was on Twitter and I think I started following her and she goes, oh, Osher Gunsberg started following me. And then I went, no, that's me. And then she looked at me and goes, what happened? Oh, what happened? I went, well, that photo was a good 5-6 years ago, but yeah, thanks for the compliment.
Nice. Hey, I bet. Tell me about radio. So when did you first sort of go, this is the industry for me?
Well, I was always fascinated with radio when I was growing up as a teenager and stuff. And then my parents decided to sort of push me along the graphic design sort of avenue, thinking that radio doesn't pay well and is very hard to get into. They were right, but I still went into radio anyway.
Yeah.
So I sort of volunteered at my local radio station as I was going through uni. And then I finished uni and gave myself 1 year to get a job in radio. And just kept pushing and just kept sending stuff off and sending CDs at the time, which seems ridiculous now. But I would send
what was on those CDs?
Oh, just like bits of me talking into a microphone, volunteering at the community station sort of stuff and sending it off to, huge radio stations like Fox FM and 2Day and Triple M and stuff. Like, why would they ever want
Exactly. Why haven't they picked me up yet?
Yeah. So I did that for about a year and eventually I got work experience, which led to a job and then we went from there.
Okay. And that's in SA, yeah?
Well, no, I grew up in Victoria and sent stuff off to the whole country. And then my first radio job was in Muswellbrook, New South Wales.
Okay.
Which is a small town in the Hunter Valley.
Yeah, right. Do you know another radio guy called Tim Fowler? He's out that way. I think he's in the Blue Mountains, actually.
The name sounds familiar, but no, I don't know him. Sorry.
He's at a station called Move FM in Blue Mountains, New South Wales. I've actually done a coffee chat with him. Really good guy, and we still catch up regularly, which is good. So, did you almost go down the graphic design road?
Yeah, well, I did work in it for that year, sort of doing a little bit of freelance stuff here and there while I was trying to push into radio, and I still use it to this day. Like, like everyone has to have a social media presence. If you work in radio now, you got to do things and whatever. So I do it fairly regularly, but just try and keep my awesome skills away from the boss so that it's on the DL and he doesn't know that I can do all that stuff.
That's definitely a question, and it's probably as good a time as any to ask it. So you have your own radio job that you do.
Yep.
And then you do Vinyl Soul as well as.
Yep. So I am the music director at Hit 107, formerly SAFM in Adelaide, and that's the day job. And then Vinyl Soul is on the side, which sort of started about 2 years ago, and they do cross-pollinate from time to time.
Of course they do, yeah.
The bosses are really good about letting me do things on work time or having people into the studio and stuff while I'm meant to be working. As long as the work gets done, they're pretty good about it.
Got it. As long as you're ticking those boxes, then you can play around as well, sort of thing.
Yeah.
How did it start? Why did you think this is the thing to do with this podcast?
Well, I've done a couple of podcasts in the past, just with mates and stuff when I used to live in Geelong. And I've always been fascinated with podcasts. I love the idea that there's no boss. You can pretty much say whatever you want with no repercussions. Yeah. And you are in control of what you're doing. And so now I should say that I don't have this boss anymore. I have a different one. But at the time I had a boss that wanted me to really focus on the off-air side of my job and not so much the on-air side of my job. And I found that really frustrating because I like both sides of it.
Which was what? What does that mean, off-air?
Right. So not being on the air, not being on the radio, and just more programming the station.
Okay.
Which I found really frustrating because I wanted to be on air still. And so I thought, well, I'll start this podcast and create something that I would enjoy listening to and create something that it possibly does now, but at the time I didn't think it existed on radio anywhere.
In like a podcast about music?
Yeah. So there's a lot of radio shows about music, but they're goes for 3 minutes and then you throw to a song and then you don't really get any in-depth chat with artists. It's more like 2 minutes about their latest tour and then let's play a silly game, which we've done a pun with your name, and that's about all you get on the radio.
It sounds like every radio station ever.
Exactly. So for me as a listener, I get really frustrated with that because I'm like, I don't care what Katy Perry has backstage in her rider. I want to know how she wrote those songs. I want to know if she's still with that guy and all that long form conversation type stuff. And so I thought, let's create that, because that just didn't exist at the time. And it's still, I would say, is a little bit of a void, but it's getting there.
Love it. And that's a big part of why I started Coffee Chats. You know, I'm introverted by nature. I don't like big groups. And a big part of that is because of the small talk. Yeah. And it's a lot of, as you say, what's in Katy Perry's rider, for example. It's stuff that you walk away and go, I'm not a better person because of that conversation, you know? So totally. I want people to listen to podcasts like this one and go, because of listening to that, I'm now one brick further along in my big high rise of this thing called life, right? Yeah.
And I think listening to podcasts as well, you can start to almost get to know that person, and you have this little relationship that you check in with them once a week and you listen for an hour to what they've got to say or while you're doing your groceries or your commute or something like that, and it becomes a relationship, a friendship, if you will.
Exactly.
I love that. Got it.
I'm going to assume this, you would follow Mark Maron, WTF podcast, one of the big ones in the States. And he talks about the research he does before talking to a guest is to listen to their back catalogue of albums and songs.
Very good technique.
What do you do leading up to a big conversation?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I'll immerse myself in their music and listen to as much as possible. If it's a artist that I have on, I'll listen to interviews that they've done in the past as well. But if it's, for instance, I get a lot of radio people on or TV people on because I like the idea of chatting about music with them. So I'll try and watch whatever they've done. So it's the same sort of thing. I'll try and either the night before or a few nights earlier and just write down a whole lot of things that I find interesting about them and try and subtly bring them up, which I presume you've done the same thing for me. You've listened to every podcast I've ever done and you've just like, oh, good, interesting. I'll bring that one up.
Well, I'm very proud to say that's pretty much what happened. But I'm not saying that to pat you on the back, even though I love your podcast and I want to talk about the award that you won recently. But even before thinking this guy, Aiden, and his podcast, Vinyl Soul, is someone that I want to talk to, even before that, I just enjoyed the conversations that you were having. You know, I'm a massive Colin Hay fan and a massive Men at Work fan. And when I saw that you'd had that conversation with him, like that was, you know, as soon as I saw it, it was upload straight away, you know?
Yeah, that was a tough one because he didn't quite want to open up and there was a bit of a delay on the phone and those things can really like play with you, like throw you off a bit. And so I had to keep pushing and pushing to sort of get what I wanted out of him. But eventually I think we got there.
I loved it. And you mentioned it earlier on, you don't just want to have 3 minutes. Sure, you need to promo their event coming up, their gig coming up, their new album or whatever. But you also want to give the listeners something that they don't know. You know, I've been a Colin Hay fan for 20 plus years. I know a lot about him. I don't want to listen to something that I've heard 100 times before, right? And from what I noticed with that, especially the Cram talk, I listened to that just the other day. Having that opportunity, much like you've given me tonight, the opportunity to spend a bit more time together, you can ask a lot deeper questions and a lot more real, genuine questions. Do you have a strategy to your conversations?
Strategy is probably not the right word, but I almost write, and I don't like the word script either, but I'll even write, I'd compare it to a kid's choose your own adventure story. So I'll try and preempt what they're going to answer with. And I'll be like, okay, if they answer that way, we'll go down this way. Or if they answer that, we'll go down that way.
Yeah.
But it's not that structured. Like I'm doing dot points on a page and then I'll sort of bring it in. And most of the time I'll try and memorize what I want to ask somebody. But it's important to even write the script. If you completely throw it out, that's good because it's in the back of your mind and you remember, oh yeah, I want to ask them that. Oh, they said that. Oh, that's right. That brings us on to that. So
and that's definitely, as you say, I don't want to use the word strategy, but I will. That's definitely the strategy that I have too. You know, there's X amount of things that I want to talk about with you tonight. How I get to those things, well, let's see, right?
Yeah. How long have you been doing coffee chats for?
So it's evolved. To answer your question, coffee chats for probably the best part of this whole year, and I've only started the radio show the last couple of months.
Awesome.
And that's been a whole different ball game, right? Because as we talked about before, who I am in a radio chat isn't who I am with you right now.
Yeah.
And I can be a bit more loose, for want of a better
crazy
for want of a better verb. So yeah, but even in, like, I owned a couple of gyms, I did some business coaching. I always just found that by chatting with people in this sort of structure, there was a lot more value in that.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to know people on a hell of a lot deeper level than just going through a survey on a piece of paper. Mate, let me turn the page a little bit. Well done on the award.
Thank you.
Last month, wasn't it?
Maybe 2 months ago now.
2 months?
I think.
That's huge, right? So the Castaway Awards, that's the first year Australia's done something like that?
Yeah. So let me tell you the heartbreaking story behind winning that.
Please.
Award.
Do I need some tissues?
Well, I needed them at the time, let me tell you. So I had a son the end of last year. So he's about 9 months old. And I'd had my tickets all booked, accommodation all booked, and he got really sick the night before. And my wife was like, you should go. You should still go. You should still go. And then that morning we took him to the doctors, and I'm like, and she was sick as well. I think she might have had, they both had tonsillitis, or gastro, or I think it was tonsillitis. And
it was either one end or the other.
Yeah. So it got to the point where it was like, okay, if I was going to make this plane flight, I need to leave now. And we're still sitting in the doctor's surgery. And I'm like,
Wow.
And I didn't want to like tell my wife like, hey, I need to leave now. So I just was like, I'm not going. I just can't go. And then in my mind, I was like, doesn't matter because I'm not going to win anyway. So I just won't go. I miss out on a fun red carpet event, but who cares? Like they come and go.
Yeah, family first, right?
Exactly. So I was annoyed, but I was like, who cares? And so that night I was like, I will sit down and I'll watch the event at least because they had like a live stream. And my son had gone to sleep. We'd finally got him to sleep. My wife was like, I'm out too. I'm going to sleep. And then I was sitting here in a sleeping bag. I think the heater might have been broken or something. I can't remember, but I was sitting here in a sleeping bag watching the computer screen, and then they read out and the winner for Best Arts, Literature and Music category, Vinyl Soul with Aiden G. And I'm like, and no one's getting up because I told them I was going, and I'm like, no, yelling and cursing, and I was like, so angry. And then I went into my wife and I was like, I won, and then walked out.
Oh no!
You should be happy. I'm like, I'm not because I wasn't there.
I'm here, and they're there.
So it was really, and the next day I sort of was quite happy about the whole thing. I got to that point, but it took me a while to get
Wow. So what happened when they called out your name and
no
the
one
podcast?
got up. Everyone just sort of looked around, and then they waited. It felt like forever as I'm watching this live stream.
He must be in the toilet, or
probably only like 30 seconds, maybe less, maybe 10 seconds. And
felt like a week.
All right, well, we'll keep going.
Next. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you get? Do you get a trophy? Do you get a thing?
Yeah, so this magic talking stick I'm speaking into now, they sent that down for me. So I got a microphone and an award, which sits on my desk at work. I wish I could show you, but it's not here. What else? There was a subscription to like an editing software package for 2 years. And yeah, I think that was it, maybe. That's awesome. For different categories, they had a few other prizes or different things, but that was for my one. So yeah.
Got it. Was that validation for you that...
Oh, completely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, lots of ways, because it was something that was my passion project that I had poured everything into, that starting this podcast. And there was resistance at the beginning from like my workplace going, are you sure you're going to be able to focus on work and stuff? And then management changed, and then they sort of almost did a backflip, and they were like, oh no, this is really good. And it's doing really well. And so it wasn't that there was ever, doubt in my mind or concern or anything like that, but it was definitely a moment of like, yeah, I'm good at this, and it's awesome to finally be acknowledged for that. Because podcasting, like I said before, it's a back and forth relationship that you sort of form with your listeners, but for the most part, it's one guy speaking into a microphone to possibly one other person. It's kind of a
and your
isolated type thing.
One person. Exactly. I always make the joke. I said, I interviewed a girl. She'd been traveling all around the world. We had an amazing conversation. And she goes, I really love listening to your podcast. And I said, so you're the person.
Yeah.
And I said, it's you and my mum. And then I went on to say, I actually told that joke to my mum once, and she said, I don't listen to it.
Oh, ouch.
Exactly.
No, my parents don't listen either. And, and I've I think I've got their phones set up that they'll automatically get the episodes. And every so often when I go visit, I'm like, oh, what did you think of that one or whatever? And they're like, oh, you're still doing that thing, eh?
I think it is.
It was the same with the award though. Like that, it almost like showed people that like may have listened to an episode here and there, or like don't, because a lot of people don't quite understand podcasts. If you're older or you don't, you're like, well, what is it? How do you get paid, or what's the point, or who listens to that? People don't get it. And then when you get an award, it's like, oh, they can see value in that, because that's what's
tangible now.
Yeah,
that's right. Got it. Talk to me about, so you said earlier on, the radio said, oh, this is going well. At what point did you go, wow, this is going well?
There's been several moments. I don't think there was one moment, but there was several spots along the way, like when iTunes featured it on their front page on the podcast main page. I was like, all right, that's good. That brought in a whole lot of listeners, and they liked it, because there was the listeners started growing and things. And then getting guests became easier and easier. So at the beginning, I made a rule that I didn't want to do phone chats. I did a couple of episodes of phone chats, and I make exceptions here and there, but I try and have them in studio or via what we're doing at the moment sort of thing. Because over the phone, it's just not very good quality. And so tough. At the beginning, it was like, oh, I can give you 5 minutes on the phone. And then eventually it was like, I don't know, we can come in. And I think, I can't remember who, but there was a few people that, I think it was Tony Martin. Tony Martin came into the studio. For those that don't know, he's a comedian that has done heaps of different things over the years. But he came into the studio, and there was a lot of people at the radio station who were like, oh, how did you get him? And I'm like, well, I just organized it and sent him the link and sent him the bio and the write-up of the podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were almost jealous that I'd got him and they didn't. And it was like, oh, well, that's a pretty good sign.
Is there an element of why is he doing it for the podcast and not for the radio show?
Well, he ended up doing the radio show as well in the end, but because they grabbed him, because I'd already got him. But,
we'll take advantage of this.
It just depends on how connected. Like I said before, like some people don't understand what podcasts are, but the people that do are always happy to help and always happy to jump on and chat, because they get it, like, and they see the value in it, I guess. And they don't have to, like they said, like I said before, it's annoying having to stick to a 3-minute chat and then throw to a song. For the guests, that can be annoying as well. So sometimes it's really liberating for them to go, oh yeah, we can just sit and chat. Like, I think it was Alan Bro I did really early on. And I reckon we sat and chatted for maybe 2 or 3 hours. I was getting embarrassed because I was meant to be working. Like, I was like, oh crap, I need to wrap this up.
He'd be a great person to chat to.
Oh, he was awesome. We just chatted about so much stuff, and I had to edit it down because I try and keep to sort of a certain time limit for the podcast. Just what I've sort of worked out works. But he was one of those ones where we just talked for ages, and he got it. Like he could see the value in a podcast, and he could see the value in just a good conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sort of thing makes it easier.
Has there been a guest, and you've got lots of big names, like I mentioned Colin Hay, you've chatted to Hanson. How was the Hanson chat?
They were fun. I've actually interviewed them before in the past. And they're just really good guys. They're really fun, down-to-earth guys that are roughly my age. Like they're sort of 30, 33, 35, or, going up from there. And so, yeah, they're just fun. We just had a good chat and chatted about their career.
And real musos too, right? Like they didn't just show up to do bop and then we lost them again. Like they've been making music their whole life.
Yeah. And like they're one of those artists where you can laugh at them because they've got their one-hit wonder or whatever, but they are, like you said, real musos that know their stuff and are happy to talk about Chuck Berry for half an hour type thing, because they have that same love of music. And it's not just, I don't know, pushing their latest single and stuff. They're just happy to chat, and they can back it up.
Do you see the difference between a guest that is just there to push a product or a gig or an album?
Always.
And how do you deal with that?
There's several ways. Either get it away from the beginning, get it all out there, shove it out there.
Do what you got to do.
And then you can move on from there.
Yeah, okay.
That's one technique. Another, I guess, would be the opposite. Ignore it for as long as possible, but that doesn't generally go very well. They'll try and like find some crowbar way to just get it in there and, that reminds me of my new album or whatever. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you've done there.
Yeah, nice segue.
Yeah.
Like a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
What's been the toughest guest you've had?
Tough guest. Good question.
Was there someone who you just thought this isn't a great chat?
I don't. Is it?
You probably don't want to say.
Not to want to name. There's one chat I did, a proper one that I did which never went to air. Like I've never. There's several that I've done that I've chosen to not air, but one particular comes to mind. That was. I thought they were a bit of a snob. I didn't like the way the conversation went. And I just thought, I don't think this brings value to listeners releasing this. It doesn't.
Sure.
I think it would turn more people off than bring in listeners just because they're a name. Who cares? I want the conversation to be good. That's the most important thing.
There's got to be.
You find the same thing. Like if someone's not open, there's no point releasing it. You know.
Yeah, 100%. Best guest.
Best guest. Okay, so what radio station did you grow up listening to? Who were your radio heroes?
Oh, don't hold this against me, but I'm a big Kyle Sandilands fan.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've read his book. He's a very talented man. He doesn't make radio that I like listening to, but he's very skilled.
Yeah, I've got a lot of time for him for different reasons. I understand why he's not a popular man, but I also think that's why he's successful. Yeah.
Okay. So every time I get to interview one of my radio heroes, they're the best guests. So Scott Dooley, when I chatted with him, that was incredible because I used to listen to Triple J a lot, and Scott Dooley was probably one of those people that up until then, it was just Hamish and Andy. They were the only people that really interested me in radio. And then I never thought that radio was achievable as a one-person type thing. You always had to be in a team, and he sort of showed me that you can be funny on your own and you
bounce off yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. You can make fun, interesting radio on your own instead of just, that was this song, that was that song. So I loved having him in and chatting to him. He was a big one for me.
Well, I was going for a run along, I don't know if you know the Sunshine Coast here in Queensland. It's a beautiful spot. Anyway, I'm running along the Maroochy River on the Sunshine Coast, listening to your chat with Matt O'Kine.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to stop and replay his rap song. I loved it so much. I played it again.
He's that's the thing. I think I've almost collected the whole set of Triple J type people that I've tried to get on. I think I'm hunting down a few still to go, but yeah,
nice.
You got to try and mix it up. I'm always trying to look for variety on the podcast. So there's a few more Triple J ones to tick off, but I've just been holding off.
Well, let's talk about that, right? So, how do you decide who you're going to chat with? And do you kind of go, well, I can't put them on next week because I've just done, 3 Triple J breakfast show hosts?
Yep. Yeah, that's 100% it. I'm looking for variety. I'm looking for people that don't always do interviews or don't always do chats about themselves. So like I find it fascinating hearing a chat with Merrick Watts or whatever about his musical knowledge and his tastes and things, because you don't get that anywhere else. And so if I'm putting out an interview that's same as everyone else's, there's not really much point. So Colin Hay, who I had on recently, doesn't really do that many interviews. And so I'm looking for people like that. I'm looking for variety and people that I find interesting. Like, there's no point me getting on somebody if I don't find them interesting, because it's just, what's the point? But yeah, I'm looking for different genres of music. I'm looking for males and females and anything to sort of mix it up and keep people interested.
Was there a reason that you went with a predominantly music podcast? I mean, I get that's your background, but did you think that this was a deliberate thing?
Yeah, music's my strong point. That's definitely where my knowledge lies. I do another podcast on the side with some friends called My First Time, and it's about pop culture and watching a film for the first time, like a big one, like I don't know. We just did Breakfast Club. All these sort of talking.
You're showing your age now, mate.
Oh well, it's not that. It's just more like those references that you see on The Simpsons and things like that, and it's like, oh, what film's that from? I don't know what that is. We try and do those sort of films and sort of fill in the blanks for people. So I have other podcast avenues and different things, but music is definitely my passion, and it's what I have the most knowledge about. And it's what I think I can bring to the world, I guess.
Yeah, nice. What do you like to do outside of podcasting and radio land?
What do I like to do? I go to a lot of gigs. I run.
You're a runner?
Yeah, I try and run as much as possible. Today I went to the gym because it was pouring down outside, but went for just a short run in the gym. And then like being a dad, just takes up so
time consuming.
So that's sort of the focus at the moment.
It's a little boy, you said?
Yeah, a little boy. His name's Jethro.
Nice.
So he takes up a lot of time.
There's no musical references there, I'm sure.
Well, no. It was we were going to call him Jet, and then somebody like said something like, "Oh, you'll probably call your kid something hipster like Jet," and I'm like, "Well, stuff you."
They had you, Red.
So we went with Jethro. It was a bit more
nice,
more formal, I guess.
What's some of your obviously you're a Triple J guy, and that's you've listened to those guys for a long time, but what sort of music do you enjoy?
What sort of music do I enjoy? I, as a teenager, grew up as a punk. Like I was just did not listen to anything but punk. Like we're talking NoFX, Pennywise,
Screw 32, guys like that.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And so it was punk for just such a long time. And so on the radio station that I work on now, like we're a top 40 hit music station, you pop and dance type hits. And like we have often these sort of flashback days and stuff. And if it flashes back to anything from 2000 to 2005, the years that I was in high school, I don't know. No clue. Not a clue what those songs are.
Not even like Blink or someone like that?
I know the Blink, obviously, because they're very punky, but like every song that was released from Britney Spears around that era, or even Lady Gaga, I just missed it. Just completely missed it.
So the Titanic song, Celine Dion, you just...
Oh, that was a bit earlier, wasn't it? That was like 96, I want to say.
It's all a blur to me, mate.
But yeah, so it was punk growing up, and then started listening to more and more Triple J and sort of broadened from there. So I don't mind your Aussie hip hop. I listen to a lot of stuff, but I still listen to a lot of punk. I still listen to a lot of ska and alternative type stuff, but I have a soft spot for acoustic sort of acoustic singer-songwriters as well, like Colin Hay and like Josh Pike and Joshua Radin and artists like that.
Yeah, that's my stuff. I love it.
Well, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, my old man got me into the Stones, Dire Straits,
classics,
Pink Floyd, all of that early on. And I'm really proud to say that my son and my partner's kids are the same. Like the youngest daughter, she's 9. She got a guitar from her dad. He's in a band, and she's learning Satisfaction by the Stones, and she's
Nice.
learning Iron Man, and it's just such a proud moment to see that. And it's not some of your other influences from these days. It's from back in the 60s and 70s. But yeah, look, I saw, we're talking Colin Hay a lot. I saw Colin Hay in a room of probably 30 people once.
Wow.
And it was, it's the storytelling that I have a lot of time for. You hear the backstory. Like, I've got a 12-minute version of Down Under, and he tells the whole story of how Down Under started, and a little bit about the legal battles he went through in that song. And so much in the same way as your podcast tells the backstory, I really enjoy that from a live gig as well.
Yeah, one of the best gigs I ever went to was do you remember when Good Charlotte had that like transition type thing where they went by the Madden Brothers for like one album?
Go on,
yeah. So they released an album, and they played they went through all who they used to listen to, and so they'd play one of their songs, and then they would play like a Stones or a Beatles or even like a Beach Boys type song in between of theirs, and it sort of went along a timeline of up until now. And I didn't expect that to be such a good gig, but it was incredible because they talked the whole way through, and they sort of went back and forth from their song to somebody else's songs and went through the eras. It was amazing.
I saw really interesting. A good mate of mine, he's visually impaired, and he's in the music industry as well. He promotes a lot of bands. We went and saw Guns N' Roses when they were in Queensland, start of the year maybe.
Yeah.
And in between, or just before they were going to play a big hit like your November Rains or Sweet Child of Mine or something like that, they would play a Beatles song, but just play the instrumental. Slash would be there and just play like a Beatles instrumental, and you're in this zone. He took you to this other place, and then all of a sudden Axl would get on the piano and start playing November Rain, and it was such a cool experience to sort of be taken through decades of music. What I mean? In a gig, it was so cool.
Nice.
Mate, tell me about why now you call it the newbie run on the podcast. I always look forward to that. Why make that a regular part of the podcast? Well,
Australian music's very important to me. The podcast was born out of what does radio not have that I like and that I can create. And I don't think Australian radio supports Australian music as much as it should. And
unless you're Kylie or Culture or something like that.
Yeah, like unless you Guy Sebastian, like it just doesn't get played on the radio, which frustrates me. So there was a bit of that. And there was a bit of like back in the day, I'd go see when I was 18 or whatever. It didn't really matter whether they were an international band that was huge or it was just a cool band that was from your hometown. You still loved them. You saw them as the same. So I kind of wanted an element of that on the podcast, exposing these smaller bands to a much wider audience that could also possibly fall in love with their bands and their music and things.
Can you remind me the band that you featured on the Cram episode?
Oh,
am I asking a lot?
Top of my head. Now I look bad.
I'll have to find it. The girl was speaking in almost an indigenous language.
Oh, yeah. Please hold. I will grab that for you.
Are you looking for it?
Oh, that wasn't Electric Fields, was it?
It might have been. Hang on.
Electric Fields. Yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
Really good song.
Yeah.
The one that you featured there, really good. And they were both great. He was great as well. But you could just tell the passion. And when you said, all right, we better wrap it up, like she was genuinely upset that she had to stop talking music, right?
Yeah. Can I correct you? Sorry. It's actually a dude.
Oh, true. It's two guys?
Yeah, two guys. Yeah. Just
okay.
A very, very feminine man.
I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Amazing voice.
Yeah, incredible voice.
He had a really good voice.
Yeah, and they were fun guys. Like I love finding those bands that people don't know about and sharing them. And if I can, find a new fan or find somebody that I can like and possibly somebody else can like, that's a win for me.
And that's it, right? It's all about the win-win.
Yeah.
You know, so I would then go and look for that song, their song on iTunes. And
the good thing about having unsigned bands on is you can use their music really easily. Like you can't really use an actual band's song without like writing to a record label and getting permission and jumping through a legal hoop and paying APRA and all that sort of stuff. If it's a local artist, you can literally just ask them and they go, "Yep,
yeah, please do it." Yeah.
So that kind of makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I bet. Is the podcast what you wanted it to be 2 years ago?
Yeah, completely. The only thing I would say is it's not as regular as I would like it to be, and a lot of that has to do with my son that I mentioned earlier. I completely blame him.
Yeah,
it's just
little shit.
He's going away. That's all it comes down to.
It's tough, right? I don't think people realize how much goes into it. It's not just showing up, having a chat, and then hitting download.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for me, it's a one-man operation, whereas a radio station has got 30 people to 100 people behind the scene. Mine
doesn't. Mine's got like 4, but
okay, small town.
It's right.
But it's just me. So I'm the producer. I'm hunting down the guests. I'm then the host. I'm recording the chat. I'm also the audio producer that's editing the whole thing. And then I'm the putting it up and the social media guy for it as well, and making the little thing for Instagram to make it look all shiny and new and check it out picture for that. And so it's a lot of work that goes into it. And I've unfortunately created quite a high bar for myself and a high standard, and I don't let an episode go out until I'm 100% happy with it. So these things take time. I wish I could put out more, but I just can't.
Got it. Is there a financial reimbursement for you?
As in like an advertiser or a sponsorship partner type thing?
Something that's, giving you money to do the podcast?
No, not at this stage. There was one thing I was sort of toying with at one stage, and I sort of, what's the word? I put it to bed. I didn't think it was the right avenue for the podcast. So I put that aside, but I'm looking into other things. For me, if there is some kind of financial thing, I want it to be right. And if it's not right, I don't really care, because I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm not relying on it for an income. It's my fun thing to do that I really enjoy. And as long as I'm still enjoying it, that's what matters most.
That's what matters, exactly. And let me clarify, I don't ask that question from a anything to do with business or the monetary side of it, but more so, to see what it is that you want to have aligned with in regards to your podcast, right? Because that's an important thing.
Well, I was really vaguely approached at one point, and I say vaguely because I think if I had have pursued it a little bit more, it would have definitely come across. But I had the impression that I was going to have to answer to them very quickly, and they were going to make decisions about the content, and I did not want that. So I sort of shut it down. The whole thing was born because I wanted to be in charge and create something that I wanted. I don't want to have to partner up with someone that's just for the sake of $50 or whatever,
It's your baby.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who's the next big guest for you? Who's someone that you really want to chat to?
There's a few people I'm hunting at the moment. I hate saying these things because sometimes they don't come off. Let me see. I think Stefan Dennis is going to be on soon.
Okay.
He's obviously plays Paul on Neighbours, who had a big career in the 80s as a music artist before he was acting.
How do you find out? Because you had a politician on and he was also a DJ.
Yeah.
How
Anthony
do you
Albanese.
find out this stuff to link it into, oh, there's a musical link?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm always looking for the musical link. If there's no musical link, there's no chatting to them.
It's right.
Well, he's a special case because he was the ambassador for Record Store Day. So I read a press release and was like, oh, that's fascinating. I must get him on.
Nice.
But other people, I don't know. I just know. I guess I just look into it, really.
Are you like me? Like, do you go, this would be interesting?
Yeah, totally. And again, it's like I'm looking for people that you wouldn't expect. I love that sort of thing. Sean McCarlis, another one that I'm sort of hunting at the moment. It may or may not happen. I don't know.
Geez, that would be a tough one to stay in control of.
Yeah, totally.
It'd be awesome, but it'd be tough.
But he's released albums and stuff, and he plays banjo and things. So I thought he would be great. So I'm chatting to him or his people or stuff. So we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's always the radio ones are always easy to get. Like I work in the industry. It's not that hard to send off an email. But the other ones where there's not a natural connection, as far as a link from working together or coming across their path before, they're the harder ones to get.
Do you
how do you choose who you get on and things?
Yeah, well, see, obviously I don't have a set genre.
Yeah.
I think for me, so the idea of coffee chats is that I, find interesting people and talk about their remarkable story. And a lot of the time it's pretty heavy, For example, I've had guys that have been drug addicts for years and years and years and have sold everything, including their mother, to get more drugs. I've chatted with people that have been in prison, chatted with a father that hasn't seen his kids for 6 years. I've chatted with a woman who's going to be dead in 6 months. Yeah, right. And I got to a point where I'd probably chatted with about 4 or 5 people in those sort of conversations.
Yeah.
And working a full-time job as well and trying to be a parent and a good partner.
Emotionally draining.
And having that emotionally draining conversation for an hour plus, it's tough.
Yeah.
So, there became a bit of a strategy of, I really like those chats and I want to keep having them. But in between, I'm going to talk to Aiden G and I'm going to talk to, someone else that I enjoy, and it's a positive, colorful chat versus a dark conversation.
I'm sorry I don't have the Australian Idol journey story for you. Troubled past.
Well, I chatted with Adro from The Biggest Loser, and we're sort of a similar age, so you probably remember Adro.
Yep.
And he was a great, really good chat. Like you had talked before about Alan Bro.
Yeah.
Adro was that for me. Like we chatted for close to 2 hours, and we still share text messages now. And just a really genuine bloke. And it became less, and I'm not sure if you find this, but the thing that I wanted to talk to him about, sure, we talked about that, but it was all the other stuff that we uncovered that was what was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, they're always the fun ones where you discover something where you've got a genuine common shared interest.
Exactly.
Or you're fascinated about some part of them that you wouldn't have pictured or seen coming, I guess.
100%. I think too, and this is sort of, I'll wrap this into a question. When I do the radio thing, so I have an hour a week, Sunday nights, 6 p.m. for those that are in my area, put the plug in. But in that hour, I've got 20-minute interview. Because there's awesome. There's ads and there's, all the other stuff that goes into an hour of radio. A conversation like this, it's a solid hour, and we can talk about all the in-betweens. First of all, is that something that you have to deal with in the radio versus podcast? And if so, how do you separate the two?
Okay. Well, I used to do drive radio when I lived in Geelong with another guy, and I learned a lot from him. We did this show together called The Departure Lounge for Monday to Friday, 2 hours each day from 4 till 6, we were competing against Hamish and Andy and all the other drive shows. So I don't know why anyone would listen to us, but
no, I've never heard of those other. Who was it? Hamish and who?
Yeah, somebody. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know if you know them, but I can't stand Hamish and Andy.
Really?
It's the constant laughing. It's
fair enough.
It's a 2-hour show and 45 minutes is them laughing.
Yeah, fair call.
Anyway, just my opinion, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I do know them very well. No, I'm kidding.
They're in the room next door.
Yeah, no, good mates. I've met them a few times at different events and things. They are good guys. I know Jack, their button pusher, a little bit better than the two of them. But anyway, so yeah, the old drive show that I used to do, we would do interviews and we would do long form things. But again, it would the longest you would air between a song would be like, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, because it's drive radio. You want
a long time,
right? And fun for your drive home.
That's it.
So yeah, the podcast I just don't think it would work on the radio. I just don't think it would work very well. I don't like the idea of cutting it up and inserting the songs and things. I don't know. There's been talk of that, and the boss tried to do that at one point, and I kind of went, I don't know. And then he got busy and forgot, and I just didn't bring it up again. He brought it up, but I didn't
pursue it.
Follow it up because I just didn't think it would be a good idea.
Well, you look at someone like Richard Fidler on ABC.
Yeah.
And he does a full hour every day. But obviously the ABC is a bit different from your commercial.
Totally different. Right? Yeah, I would love to do that sort of that style of radio, and he does a great job. His podcast is really good, and it's literally just the radio show put together in a podcast. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's how he does it.
I guess my question was more so: is an interview on radio deliberately different to how you do the podcast? Now, obviously it is from the time perspective, but are the questions you ask different?
Yes.
It's a whole different format?
Yeah, totally. Like I said earlier, like when you're on the radio, you want it to be fun and you want it to stand out, and it's very surface level. It's not real, if you will. And like for a hit music station, you want them going, you want them saying something like, I wrote this song when I was 15 years old. Here it is, the new song. And then you just cut that little bit up and you insert it into the beginning of the song. Like you want it just like a 10-second little grab you can use, or, a funny little tidbit that you throw in between songs and things. Whereas, podcast is much longer, and especially live, obviously a live radio interview, you can't throw out controversial questions. You can't ask.
You don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, because that can be quite intense. Whereas pre-recorded, you can work your way up to a left of field question and get them in your zone and eating out of the palm of your hand. And then you throw out this question that if you started with, they would have walked out, but you can work them up to that, and they probably will answer it, and they'll give you something.
Do you do that? Do you think you're good at that?
I've gotten better. I learned pretty quickly. You try and find something in common. You throw out something in common right at the beginning of an interview where you can bond, and then they feel a little bit more at ease and they're willing to open up a little bit more.
Did I do that with you tonight?
Oh, totally. I don't know.
I don't know what it was.
I'm not critiquing you. I'm not air checking you. Who was it? Amy Shark. I don't know if you know her. No. She had I think she came at number 2 on Hottest 100 this year, just being with her song Adore.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do know. Yeah, my partner showed me the song. Yeah.
Chatting to her. I'll tell this story.
Go on.
This is one of those stories where I'm like, I might get in trouble. But
you're in too deep now.
Yeah. So I was chatting to her, and it was like this. It was sort of a video link interview. And we were chatting, and I said, I think I opened up like almost the first question or something. It was really early on. Like I said, congratulations on the success, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I was so pumped when your record label signed you. and I won't say which record label, but it'll take 10 seconds for anyone to Google which one it is. But I said, I was so pumped when they signed you because, you know, all they have is like terrible Australian Idol type people and Australia's Got Talent and reality TV show contestants. So I was pumped when they actually got somebody of substance. And she's sitting there pissing herself, just laughing her head off. And then it was turned into a great interview. But about 2 minutes later, it dawned on me and I went, wait a second. Is there somebody from the record label sitting beside you or the other side of the camera?
Yeah.
Like, because they've obviously brought you in for this interview. And she's like, oh, yeah, they're just there. And I'm like, oh, no. And so, like, I literally finished the interview and it can't have been more than 30 seconds later. I got a call from the record label going, yeah, that's not going to air anymore.
That's awesome.
Amy Shark has not featured on podcast because I said some dumb stuff I shouldn't have said.
I'm sure, like especially live, right? There must be things that just come out of your mouth, and your head's going, I probably shouldn't say this. Your mouth's going, it's too late. It's already out.
Oh, but I knew what I was saying, and I did it intentionally because I thought it would win her over. Because I knew that it would be something that she'd laugh about, and then we'd open up, and that was just a dumb little idea I had. So I probably would have done it. I'd probably do it again, to be honest. Oh, probably not that far, but I don't know. Like it was just.
Is that the worst? Like, what's something else where you've kind of gone? It's like, especially with live radio. What's been the worst thing?
Live radio. Let me think. Oh, I try to forget the horror stories. Like, you don't want to relive these awkward, terrible moments.
Yeah.
But I've definitely called people the wrong name, especially if it's somebody that I just do not care about, like a reality show contestant. To be honest, because I just won't have poured as much into it, the research-wise, that I should have, or something early on in my career. I imagine there was heaps of those, but none come to mind off the top of my head. Got it. Yeah.
That's because you're so professional.
Oh, man, that's me.
That's what it is, mate.
Why I'm sitting here in a tie and, you know.
Hey, speaking of professional, who is a podcaster / interviewer / radio host that you go, this is it for me. This is the level I aspire to get to?
Well, there's lots of podcasts and radio shows that I think they are the best in their game, but it's probably not anything that I would want to do, if that makes sense. Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts that are comedy podcasts, like The Sweetest Plum, or I love Green Guide Letters, or these, you know, obscure comedy podcasts that I think are just the best thing in the world, but they're not something that I'd ever do or be any good at. But my style, or I do really love Osher Gunsberg's podcast. I think he's incredible.
Why do you like his? I agree with you, right? I've come from listening to a lot of yours recently, WTF for a long, long time, Richard Feidler for a long, long time. And then I found Osher Ginsberg podcast, and he has some really, really good conversations. And it's one of those, it's like a car crash for me. You can't help but look, or in this case, I can't help but keep listening. What is it about his that you enjoy?
He's very honest, and sometimes I think he's a little bit too honest. But I think that really helps listeners get into this zone of trusting, I guess. And he does that perfectly. Like, you trust him right from the beginning, and you sit there and just listen and enjoy. And he's really good at making it a conversation. Like, the whole aim of an interview is for it to not sound like an interview. That's the aim, like, to try and make it sound like a conversation that freely flows. And that's something that he is good at. And Mark Maron as well does a really good job of that as well. They're both,
in regards to the honesty,
honesty as well. And the trusting thing, like, they're both really good. And they're not afraid to talk about themselves in an interview as well, which some people do too much. There's definitely a fine line between knowing your place in an interview, whether you're the guest or the host. But the back and forth is what you want. And so I like Osher talking about, I went through that as well, or I did that as well. And the back and forth, and he's always bringing up his stepdaughter and how he can do a better job of raising her and asking advice and things. And I think that's really good. So when he has a solid guest that I'm into, like, that's just the best. I look forward to those sort of ones.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I really enjoy the insecurities that he seems to have, and just so transparent about it.
Because it makes him seem more human.
100%.
Even though he's, this polished guy on the TV with perfect hair, like it.
Well, I've never seen him on TV, so I don't know.
Never seen Osher on TV.
No.
You don't own a TV?
I do.
You never turned on Channel 10? Like, he's on there every second day.
Well, he talks about The Bachelor every episode, so I get that he's the host on that show, but I'm proud to say, I've never seen The Bachelor.
Okay, we need to work through this. You never watched Australian Idol back in the day?
I did, yeah.
There you go. He was the host.
Oh, way back then. He was Andrew G then, right?
Yeah, same guy though.
Got it.
There's no magic where he, I don't know, flipped personalities or whatever. He changed his name, but he's the same dude. So, yeah.
And I guess that's the magic of podcasting, right? Is you get to know someone on a deeper level to the point where you can relate and you can go, right, I get him now.
Yeah. Yep.
He was just the host of Australian Idol. I would, turn it off as quick as turn it on. But now that I know a little bit more about him, and much the same with you and your journey and winning that, I don't mind saying, when you tell the story of winning the award, like, I know where I was. I was walking up this hill after getting a coffee, and I smiled because I'm like, I didn't know you, but I'm like, I know him. I know this guy, and I know how hard he's worked, and he's won this award, and it's like a piece of me went into that award.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
So I think you should give me the trophy for.
If anyone deserves it, it's the person walking behind me right now through the interview.
Oh, look at that. Good timing. Good timing. That's awesome, mate.
There's been heaps of people that have helped me along the way.
Exactly.
But yeah, you do feel like that. Like, it was definitely, I can't remember who it was, but there was a similar thing. They won an award, or it might have been, I can't remember. One podcast, they got almost like a white whale, like one of their guests they were always hunting down to try and get on the podcast. And I was like, yeah, good on you guys. I know you've been talking about this person for a year or so. I know you want them. So it was like you feel this little win for yourself.
Exactly. And when I first started doing it, I kind of thought, how much of myself do I give? Being quite introverted, I thought, do I really talk about my life and my kids and my own issues and blah, blah, blah. But from listening to, people like yourself, I get that it adds to that relatability. It adds to the listeners getting it and getting who you are.
Yeah, when it ties in, when you're not shoehorning it into the conversation. Like, oh, did you know? I also like.
Anyway, back to me.
Yeah, when it fits in naturally. That's what you want. It's the same with in real life. Like, I'm not an extrovert either. Like, I'm quite introverted, or I don't know. I go back and forth between the two. But like, it's the same sort of thing. I hate going to parties and small talk and all that sort of stuff. I like just hanging out with friends, and you make friends from actually sharing information and getting to that not so surface level small talk and getting to the real issues.
Yeah. I'm very wary of time, mate, so I'll start to wrap it up, and I am very grateful for the conversation tonight. I really enjoyed it. I'm doing my master's. I said earlier, I'm doing my master's at the moment, and we just finished.
What's it in?
Yeah, in business, master's of business. So it's a really good course. We get to, last year we went to Vietnam, learn a whole heap of stuff about international business, and this year going to China. So yeah, really good course.
I hear those Chinese know a bit about business. Yeah.
Apparently there's 1.6 billion of them. So a good podcast market to get in.
Sure. Yeah, tap that.
If I can get 1% to subscribe, I'll be happy. But in regards to different communication styles, a lot of people are high context versus low context. And basically what that means is a lot of people, I can say something and they just get it. I don't need to go into the detail and describe it down to the nth amount for someone to understand it. And then someone that is low context, it's the opposite. You have to give them all the information. My point there is having to give all the information doesn't make for a very good conversation. And I learnt that very, very quickly, you know. So we didn't talk a lot at the start about Vinyl Soul because I just knew it would come out as we spoke. Didn't talk a lot about podcasting because I knew it would come out as we spoke. Do you find that as well when you have conversations, you hold back from the details?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and something that has been a back and forth putting this podcast together. So I think in a few of the early episodes, I really explained a lot of things. And then I think it was my wife actually who listens to each episode, and she said something along the lines of, you shouldn't do that. You don't need to do that because people that are listening to your podcast, have a phone in front of them that can Google whatever you're talking about. So if they actually care or they actually find it jarring and need to know what that is, they've got the answers at their fingertips. But also for the mere fact that the people that are listening are interested in music, or they're interested in that person, the guest that I have on. So you would presume that they probably know about that person and they know about that stuff, and they probably know about the things you're talking about as well. And it almost gives them a kick if you don't explain it, because it's like you're in on this club.
They're
you all understand. You all know this thing. So I'll explain a few things here and there, but for the most part, I try not to, because it doesn't actually benefit really the people that I want to listen anyway. I don't know. Do you find the same?
I really do, mate. And like I said earlier, and even in back in gym world and business coaching world, I would find myself laying out all the details, and people are bored by the time you get to the actual thing.
Yep.
So it was very quickly I realized, well, let's just learn on the go. Let's just get the wheels turning, and as you say, they'll pick it up.
Yeah,
it'll come. And like you've spoken to some of the biggest musical names on the planet, right? So they probably don't want to hang around.
The biggest is probably a stretch, but sure.
Some of, right? They don't want to hang around on a conversation with you whilst you explain all the backstory of this, that, or the other. The magic dies. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. I've found the best thing I can do in an interview is just shut up. If I just shut up, and then I'll sort of see, as you said before, the choose your own adventure thing. Yep. And I'll see where you take the conversation and go, great, that leads me into this question, boom, and then we sort of soldier on from there. So yeah, I've really pulled back from details, and it seems to work.
The shut up thing's interesting because it can go both ways. Ultimately, people listen to, well, my particular podcast anyway, Vinyl Soul, people listen for the guests. And I do it as well. I'll pick and choose which Mark Maron episodes I listen to because I know that person or I like that guest that he has on. So if I'm doing that, you got to presume that other people are doing that. Exactly. And so you got to presume that people aren't really tuning in for you. They're tuning in for what you can get out of somebody else. What you can get out of your guests. So the shutting up thing, it's very valid because it's like, they're not there for me. They're there for that person. They're there for the guest that you've got on. So yeah, I think shutting up is a great technique.
Sure. And I think, don't get me wrong. And I hope I haven't come across tonight as just sort of, lean back, have my scotch.
No. I don't think that.
Let you do everything. But Richard Feider's a good example, right? He doesn't have a lot to say, but when he does, he's very controlling in where he wants his conversation to go. And it's been a joy to chat to you tonight because very few people can I talk to about the power and the art of a conversation. A lot of people just don't get it. They just think a lot of people are just waiting for their turn to talk again. And I just think that's so boring to me, you know, and so disrespectful too, right?
Oh, totally. And you can see that, you know, when you're hanging out at a party or around with friends at a dinner party or whatever, and you can see that when that person is just like, oh, I've got something, and they're not listening, but they're just waiting for that person to stop talking so they can share their moment of fame or whatever, like their little tidbit. And it's like, yeah, cool, whatever. But that doesn't help the conversation to keep going. It just validates you for 10 seconds.
Enough about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, last question. What is the...
Whoa.
Yeah,
if this is the last question, you got to make it a good one. Like this is you built this up. Like this is the last one. This has got to be the big one. This has got to be the. So I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay, let's do this. Last question.
It's like Guns N' Roses coming out with you know, the knocking on heaven's door or something to finish off with. It's the big clincher.
Close.
I'm going to edit that out, by the way. Now you've built it up. Because that's not fair. I was going to say it's not an amazing question, but I think the response will be, what's the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years look like for Vinyl Soul?
5 years, wow.
But not just the podcast, right? For yourself, for you in radio, what's the bigger plan for the next few years?
I don't know. I'd like to go home. I'm originally from Victoria, so I live in Adelaide, South Australia at the moment. I'd like to go home. Like eventually, that's always been the plan for me.
Do you like Adelaide?
I do really enjoy Adelaide. The weather's pretty good, and my wife's an artist, and she's done really well here. It's good. It's a good. So I'm originally from Geelong, and Adelaide's almost like a halfway mark between Geelong and Melbourne. Like it's like this, it's a big, small town.
Yeah.
So I do really like Adelaide in that respect, but I do want to go home. So that's definitely, hopefully 5 years that I'd like to be back in Victoria. As for Vinyl Soul, I want to keep doing it as long as I'm having fun. And as long as I've got a couple of people listening to it and I'm not struggling. It's not causing me to, like, I don't want it to be a stress. And there was a point where right early I was trying to like, okay, every Tuesday night a new episode comes out. Or I think it was every Tuesday fortnight. It was Tuesday fortnight. And then it got to like 3 weeks. And then it was just like, well, who cares? Like whenever I get it out, I get it out. I've built up a listenership and I've explained a couple of times on the podcast that this podcast I'd like to make more frequently, but it's when I can get it out. And when it becomes a stress and when it becomes something that you don't enjoy, that's when you need to give it up and you need to wrap it up. So 2, 5 years, who knows? But I'll keep going as long as I'm enjoying it, as long as I'm getting something out of it. Yeah.
Did winning the award, this is the last question, by the way.
An extra bonus question.
That's right.
The lightning round.
Did winning the award make you think, well, I better keep doing this and keep offering quality?
I don't know whether it was better, like I better do it, like it was like a ultimatum or something. It was just more of like the validation that you mentioned earlier. Like everyone in life strives for validation. They strive for the pat on the back from the metaphorical father that's good on you. You're doing a good job. Like that's what the award is really. It's I don't know, might have cost $10, little plaque, like maybe more. They spent a little bit more on it, but you know what I mean? Like it's the actual thing means nothing. It's more about what's behind it. I don't know.
I guess it's kind of like, sorry to being rude and jumping in, but
no, go for it.
It's kind of like, and without trying to be in any way racist, but if a smart Chinese kid is really smart, his parents will say, you keep going to school, because you're really good at this, so you should keep going.
Okay.
That's where I was going. Like, you've won this award, so should you really, you should keep doing this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. It was definitely you're good at this, so you should keep doing it. Yeah. That's definitely something, but it was never something that I was umming and ahhing over anyway. So it was just a nice thing on the side. That meant a lot to me at the time, that it was, the validation and that. But it was never something I was going to give up. And it's something that I have. I feel guilt at the beginning. I felt guilty when I wasn't putting out episodes and stuff, but it's now like I had summer break or whatever, but I just had a holiday for the last 2 weeks, and I was meant to get an episode out, and sitting there, and I'll get it out eventually and stuff. But
who's on that? Can you tell us?
Who's on that one? I think Ash London is going to be on the next one.
Nice.
That's going to be the one that I release. So she's the nights host on my radio station and around the network.
Yeah, I've heard that name. Actually, it just reminded me, you had Matt Stillett on as one of the newbies. Well, the visually impaired friend I spoke about before, he promotes Matt Stillett.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there you go.
Small world. So he's works for his sort of management company.
Yeah, he's got his own setup. I'll give him a plug. It's called Hostile Entertainment. And he back in the day, he only did death metal bands, and he realized very quickly there was no money in death metal bands. So he opened up to different genres, and I'm glad he did. He's he's an inspiration, that's for sure.
Awesome,
mates. I really struggle to wrap up conversations. I really struggle to close it off. Do you have any tips for me?
Well, the oldest trick in the book is, have you got any plugs before we wrap this up? And then they give the plugs, and then you thank them at the end. Like that's the quick little thingo. So, yes, I do.
Aiden, do you have any plugs?
Yeah, check out my podcast,
on iTunes.
Yeah, find it on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts from. I always just say iTunes because I feel like it's the easiest one, but wherever, whatever. Listen to it, rate it, give it a 5 stars, all that stuff.
Mate, I already have. It's an entertaining part of my week. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time tonight, mate. It's been a fantastic chat.
No problem. When does this hit the internets?
So I go up Wednesday night and Sunday night.
Okay.
So Sunday night. There you go. You put me on the spot, but I'm going to stick to it. Sunday night.
You can release this whenever you want. You don't even. This is one of those ones you throw in the can and go, didn't work out.
No, you're the pushy. What do they call it? Not talent. You're the pushy talent.
I hate that. I hate that word so much.
What, talent?
It gets thrown around in radio so much. Like, oh, I'm talent or whatever. Oh, shut up.
Yeah. Who are you again?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I've had fun.
So have I. It's been great. Chat soon. What do we do? I don't even know how to hang this up. I'll close it down.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Thanks, man.